The Proverbs 31 woman. She was never just a housewife, strength, wisdom, business, and the truth about a woman of worth. When somebody says Proverbs 31 woman, what comes to your mind? A woman in the kitchen? A devoted wife? A mother taking care of her children? A woman who wakes up before everybody else? Goes to sleep after everybody else? Keeps the house spotless, prepares every meal, never complains, never gets tired, and somehow manages to smile through all of it? Because if that's the standard, some of us are already in trouble. But what if we've been looking at the Proverbs 31 woman through a window that is far too small? What if she was never meant to make women feel inadequate? What if this passage isn't describing a woman desperately trying to do everything, but a woman who has learned how to become something, strong, wise, capable, generous, discerning, resourceful, faithful, and secure enough in who she is that she doesn't need the world's permission to recognize her worth? Today, I want us to meet the Proverbs 31 woman again, not as an impossible standard, but as a woman whose character still speaks thousands of years later. And there is something interesting many people overlook. Proverbs 31 begins with King Lemuel remembering the instruction his mother gave him. A mother was teaching her son. And before the chapter ever describes an excellent woman, this mother teaches her son about responsibility, justice, judgment, and defending people who cannot defend themselves. Then comes that famous description. Who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies? But let's stay there for a moment, because sometimes people hear the word virtuous and immediately reduce it to being quiet, obedient, modest, and well-behaved. But the picture that follows is much bigger than that. This woman is powerful. Not loud for the sake of being loud, not powerful because she controls people. Powerful because she is capable, she has judgment, she has discipline, she has compassion, she has business sense, she has foresight, she has influence, and most importantly, she has character. This woman isn't sitting around waiting for somebody to create a life for her. Scripture says she considers a field and buys it. Wait a minute. She considers it. That means she evaluates it. She thinks. She makes a decision, and then she purchases it. And with the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. That sounds remarkably like a woman making an investment. She understands resources. She recognizes opportunity. She produces. She plans. She builds. And she isn't reckless about it. The Bible specifically says she considers the field. There is a lesson in those few words alone. Everything available to you isn't necessarily good for you. Every opportunity isn't your opportunity. Every invitation doesn't deserve a yes. Every business deal isn't a blessing. Every person offering you something isn't necessarily bringing something valuable into your life. A wise woman considers. She doesn't just react. She examines, she prays, she watches, she listens, and then she decides. That's Proverbs 31. And then Scripture tells us something else. She perceives that her merchandise is good. In other words, she knows the value of what she produces. Now, somebody needs to hear that, because there are women who will celebrate everybody else's gifts while constantly minimizing their own. They'll tell everybody, oh, it's nothing. Anybody could have done it. I'm not really that talented. Meanwhile, everybody around them can see what they're carrying. The Proverbs 31 woman doesn't have to be arrogant about her abilities, but neither does she pretend they don't exist. She knows that what she produces has value. There is a difference between humility and shrinking yourself. Humility doesn't require you to pretend you're incapable. You can thank God for your gift and still acknowledge that you have one. But here's what I love even more. For all her productivity, this woman isn't consumed by herself. The Scripture says, she stretcheth out her hand to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. Her success hasn't hardened her. Her accomplishments haven't made her forget people. She can build and still care. She can achieve and still give. She can manage her household and still recognize suffering outside of it. That tells us something important. True success should enlarge your capacity to help, not just enlarge your possessions. And then we arrive at one of my favorite descriptions of her. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. Strength and dignity, not designer labels, not somebody else's approval, not popularity, not a perfect body, not the number of followers she has. Strength and dignity. Imagine waking up every morning and putting those on before the makeup, before the clothes, before the titles, before anybody tells you whether they approve of you. Strength, dignity. Because there comes a time in a woman's life when she has to stop allowing other people to determine how valuable she feels. People will misunderstand you, some will underestimate you, some will only recognize your value when they need something from you, and occasionally somebody will walk away from you and make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. But somebody leaving your life does not take your worth with them. Somebody failing to recognize your value doesn't reduce it. A diamond doesn't become glass because somebody doesn't know what they're looking at. And perhaps that's why Proverbs says her value is far above rubies. Worth doesn't have to scream. Worth doesn't have to chase. Worth doesn't have to beg to be chosen. And listen carefully to what comes next, because this may be one of the most relevant lessons for women today. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. Notice Scripture doesn't say, she never opens her mouth. Oh no, she speaks. But when she speaks, wisdom is there. That's different. You don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to prove yourself to every person committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes maturity sounds like silence, and sometimes maturity sounds like no. Sometimes wisdom says that doesn't work for me. Sometimes wisdom says, I forgive you, but I cannot continue this relationship the way it was. Sometimes wisdom says, I love you, but I need boundaries. And sometimes wisdom simply gets up and walks away. The Proverbs 31 woman has kindness on her tongue, but kindness does not mean weakness. You can be compassionate and discerning. You can be loving and have boundaries. You can have a gentle spirit and still possess a backbone. Those things are not opposites. And here's another thing. This woman prepares. She thinks beyond today. She's not constantly waiting for disaster before she starts making decisions. There's something powerful about a woman who learns to prepare for the future, financially, spiritually, emotionally, professionally, not because she's afraid of tomorrow, but because she respects it. And perhaps one of the greatest lessons Proverbs 31 teaches us is this. A woman's identity cannot be built entirely around what she does for other people. Yes, she serves her family. Yes, she works. Yes, she gives. Yes, she creates. But underneath everything she does is something deeper, who she is. Because eventually children grow up. Jobs change. Relationships change. Bodies change. Circumstances change. Titles disappear. And if your entire identity is built around being needed, what happens when people don't need you in the same way anymore? That's why your relationship with God, your character, your wisdom, your purpose must go deeper than your roles. You are somebody's wife, beautiful, somebody's mother, beautiful, a daughter, a sister, a caregiver, a professional, an entrepreneur, wonderful. But underneath every role, there is still you, and God didn't create you merely to disappear inside everybody else's needs. Then Proverbs 31 gives us the line that brings everything home. Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Beauty isn't condemned, but beauty changes. Bodies change, faces age, trends change. People who praise you today may criticize you tomorrow. That's why Scripture points us towards something deeper. Character lasts longer than appearance. Wisdom lasts longer than popularity. Integrity lasts longer than applause. And faith can carry you through seasons when beauty, money, influence, and human approval cannot. So perhaps we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, am I a Proverbs 31 woman? Maybe ask, am I becoming wiser? Am I becoming stronger? Am I learning discernment? Am I using what God placed in my hands? Am I treating people with compassion? Am I preparing instead of merely reacting? Am I learning when to speak and when to remain silent? Am I building something that will outlive me? And most importantly, is my relationship with God shaping the woman I am becoming? Because Proverbs 31 was never meant to make you feel like you're failing because the laundry isn't folded. It was never meant to convince you that a good woman must exhaust herself proving her worth. And it certainly wasn't meant to turn womanhood into a competition. The Proverbs 31 woman is valuable because of more than what she accomplishes. She is valuable because of what governs her accomplishments: wisdom, discipline, compassion, courage, dignity, faith. So to the woman listening to me today, you don't have to become somebody else's definition of a worthy woman. Keep growing, keep learning, build wisely, love deeply, give generously, speak carefully, set boundaries when they're necessary. Recognize the gifts God gave you, and don't apologize for becoming the woman He created you to be. You may still be learning. You may still make mistakes. You may have days when dinner is late, the house is messy, the plan falls apart, and you don't feel particularly virtuous at all. Welcome to being human. Proverbs 31 isn't asking you to become a machine. It's inviting you to become a woman whose character is stronger than her circumstances, a woman who knows that beauty may catch someone's eye, but character leaves a legacy, a woman clothed in strength and dignity, a woman who can look toward tomorrow, not because she knows everything tomorrow will bring, but because she knows who holds tomorrow. From my heart to yours. This is Stories by Anna. Faith. Hope, life lessons. And until we meet again, remember, your worth isn't measured by how much you can carry for everybody else. Sometimes the strongest woman in the room is simply the woman who finally understands who she is, and what she carries.